Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to today's learning activity of Vival's group, Learn as One. And my topic for today is about IT security in times of the new normal. So basically, this is a bit of the traditional learn as one session, but I hope you get something very fruitful from this session. So, first, I want to thank Vival's group for this opportunity. And let's start the presentation. So, let me introduce myself. Who am I? So, I'm Ross Sherwin Claro, currently connected with Philippine Amusement and Gaming Corporation, or PAGCOR or PAGCOR. So basically, we are the institution that actually regulates and casinos and game of chance. So I had the Information Security Division for PAGCOR, which under my umbrella is the security operation and the section data privacy. I'm also the current deputy data privacy officer and the department's risk lead. I'm also an organizer of the RootCon Hacking Conference. RootCon Hacking Conference is actually one of the longest conference or security hacking conference in the Philippines. And I started with a group Root at year two. We are now in our 14th year, and I hope everyone can join us this coming October in Tagaytay. I'm also a member of the Cloud Security Alliance, which advocates um, cloud adoption, cloud infrastructure, cloud services for the different organizations. So with that, let's proceed with the presentation. So what brings to our organization or even my organization or other company with this COVID pandemic? So one of the effect in my organization is we stopped the operation. So basically we closed down several branches and our head office operation are also affected. So we stopped procurement, we stopped hiring people, uh, but the back office still needs to run. These are the accounting departments, the health services, the human resource are still needs to run, and we experience work environment shift, which actually affected us since our organization or most of the organizations similar to education are the typical on-prem organization. We work at on-prem corporate. Now, it also affected the management meetings that we have and some of the group meetings with other departments. Now, what makes us ready for this kind of pandemic? Now, it's actually a big change for us since we are considered a traditional work scenario. So years back, we managed to implement virtual private network or VPN. This actually is used by my team in terms of supporting outside of the traditional work hours at the same times when we are needed to provide support during weekends. This gives us the opportunity to provide 24 by 7 support. Considering that the information security department at that time is very small. We are only around four at that time without the data privacy section. But now with the data privacy section, we're actually a bigger division now. Now, we also implemented endpoint management system. So these are the tools that we use to manage computers. For the as of the moment, we have around 3,000 computers which are deployed across branches, meaning we have computers in Tagaytay, we have computers in Davao, Cebu, and those computers needs to be protected and managed uh, and managed. So we also use these two types of tools, the virtual private network and endpoint management system, for us to provide support, remote support for third party, meaning we have several systems that are actually being supported by third party providers, our partners in operations. And also, these are the same tools that being used by other teams, like, for example, network, systems. So these are the same tools that we provided them during the time before this pandemic. But these tools make us give us the opportunity to be ready and coping up with this pandemic. Using these tools, we provided remote desktop support or remote desktop capabilities to our employees. When the ECQ or the enhanced community quarantine was implemented last March, all of our employees are at home. So basically, they cannot use uh, the company resources. They cannot access the company information. They cannot use different services. So what we did is that we replicate those services for the third party support, and then create the same solution for our employees. With virtual private network or VPN, we provided our employees access to their workstation, access to data, access to uh, services. And with the help of endpoint management solution, we managed to efficiently provide these policies, this virtual access to them. The hard part in providing this kind of uh, access is that the the employee does not know their computer, or they know the location but logically they don't know their computer name or probably or their IP addresses. So what we did is, using the endpoint management system, we're be able to identify which computers is being used by certain employee, and then when they requested, we can actually leverage that information and create a policy for them so that they can securely access their workstation, they can securely access their services and their data. Now, traditionally we use Windows available remote desktop tools, but with the endpoint management system, we're able to provide Live Connect, an alternative to the traditional RDP. Now, problem with these computers is that sometimes they are all turned off or is on sleep mode. So we need to have ways to turn them on. One is by calling um, our maintenance at the office and have it turn on. Unfortunately, the problem is the maintenance does not know which computer it needs to be turned on. or we have to have that information which floor, which cubicle the computer resides. So what we did is we enabled work online capabilities on all computers within the organization across branches, so that we can we can actually turn on this workstation when the employees requested access to this workstation. Then, speaking of security, we wanted to provide the same security level for the home computers of our employee, so that they can actually secure their computer, secure company owned information, and company services. So we extended the endpoint security solutions to their home. We requested license for them, so that they can actually use a valid endpoint license to at home. And then from time to time, when ECQ was implemented, we are giving them advisories, security advisories, like for example, how they can efficiently, securely use Zoom for their meeting. So how can they can actually implement the extended endpoint security at home. We also provided advisories for data privacy related information, sharing information, uh, contact tracing, company policies on related COVID information. So basically, the data privacy team has uh, provided several security advisories. But we cannot cope up with this pandemic without a core solid team. So the InfoSec team actually um, are the ones doing the legworks for this, managing the InfoSec, the security operation, managing the different services, the different solutions for users to have an efficient access to their workstation, and the privacy team that actually look into compliance with the Data Privacy Act of 2012. So with the team, a solid team, and a solid solutions integrated into providing these services, we managed to actually shift from the traditional work scenario in the office cubicle type to a work from home scenario, wherein users from home using their computers, using their mobile devices can actually work or perform their work uh, remotely. So given that situation, what are the different pandemic culture shift that we are looking into this scenario? So basically, our organization shifted from the traditional cubicle type work scenario to a skeletal to a work from home scenario. The CSC has implemented or suggested the implementation of skeletal force, the implementation of work from home. Given these two adoption, we are also looking at adopting cloud services, cloud infrastructure, cloud services. Also, we're looking at the utilization of from physical desktops to virtual desktops, wherein these desktops are hosted inside the organization, and employees actually accessing this virtual desktop so that they can perform their usual workload. We are also looking at the situation wherein employees will be required to have internet access. One of the issues that we have encountered is that employees are very limited, have limited access to internet, or they don't have subscription for the internet, and they are just using their mobile data. So when accessing resources, it's very limited, or it takes a long time for them to finish the work. Another culture shift is for us is remote learning, wherein employees are being coached or attending webinars like this one, uh, using from their home actually. And one of the biggest hurdle now for us is actually the identity and security management. We're looking at ways to enhance these two items, the identity management and security management, wherein we need to identify each employee is really the employee that actually accessing our infrastructure, our services, and a security management wherein we can safely say that we have a secure environment for the organization that can claim that their information are safe, the confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability of information is being maintained. So, like for example, the skeletal force currently we are implementing one manpower on-prem per division. So that's basically, and we are implementing a schedule of Monday to Thursday for the workload. So basically Friday up to Monday, Friday to up to Sunday, the rest are day offs. So we are also implementing work. Majority are work from home. My team, InfoSec, is actually 100% working from home. So we support the organization from home. And we're using this a different solution. Like for example, we're utilizing Viber messages. We're utilizing Zoom, MS Team for collaboration. We're also using Google Meet in some cases. We're also utilizing cloud to collaborate. So in some cases, we're using MS Teams to collaborate with certain documents, or we just use simple email for collaboration. Now, for security, we are enhancing our infrastructure. We are implementing public key infrastructure for identity, for device identity, one. Second, for user identity. And then we're enhancing our perimeter infrastructure and utilizing cloud services, like, for example, controlled access to services. So we are now in talks with other organizations. We are already in talks with the organization like RootCon, Cloud Security Alliance, even with our own suppliers, our own resellers of solutions. So what security solution we can adapt so that we can implement a more robust, efficient identity management and security management. Now, I want to go back to this slide. One of the very important consideration here is basically extending the endpoint security at home and the security advisories needed for the employees to shift from the traditional cubicle type uh, scenario to a work from home. Now, given that situation, at home has a different landscape. At home, data can be uh, shared with family members, and these family members are might not be uh, allowed to see certain information of the organization. So using the extended endpoint security at home and the security advisories that we provide, employees are equipped with the ability to manage security of their data and how they can actually securely work from home. So basically, that's my presentation for how we did it securely to manage the infrastructure. So if you have questions, I'll be willing to answer those questions. If some of the questions will not be answered here, as much as possible, I want to make comments. You can leave in the comments, and then we'll try to answer the questions as much as possible. Thank you all for listening, and I want to thank Vival Group for this opportunity uh, to, to share my experience with this pandemic. Thank you all. Um, Question: is there a chance that public school teachers can access these IT services? Well, yes, and actually, these services can be provided by the school, by the education sector, but it needs to be implemented depending on the situation of the school. So let's say, for example, there's a shift in the educations in the education wherein a modular type learning is required to be adapted. Like for example, I've seen a school that implement Zoom meeting, so as a replacement for a classroom type environment. So I think depending on the services, like for example, for my example is Zoom, they have a very competitive, or they have education related services that can be availed. So, and if the organization or the institution does not have budget for such type engagement, I think you can also leverage on some of the free services available. For example, like the use of Google Meet. So Google Meet right now with this pandemic, they provided a service for free for collaboration. There's no time limit, and the participant maximum participant is around 250, and this can be streamed to FB and to YouTube Live. So this infrastructure or these services can actually be used by school teachers. Is there a way? Is there any notification or software application that can warn us if we are opening unprotected website using breaching data? Well, yes. Like for example, like in our case, we extend the endpoint security to our uh, home computers, to our employees' home computers. This solution can actually warn us or warns the employee or the user uh, if they are actually opening unprotected website or malicious website. Actually, one of the key component for that home security solution is actually parental control, wherein parents can actually choose what type of information their child can actually surf the net, so or view on the net. So using these tools, if you want, this message is from Richel Santos Alegria. You might want to drop me a message so I can share you, or for those listening, if they want to uh, get the the name or the solution that we are using for home, I can share it with you. Just message me on FB, and then I'll try to reply the the question and the solutions that we are using. Another question is, what meeting app can you advise to use for a large number of participants, and where it's easy to use? Oh, well, large participant, if we're talking around 200 to around 250, then and you want it to use it without time limit, then I guess Google Meet is one of your choice. Well, you can also subscribe to Zoom if you have budget for it, but you can test run Google Meet. Uh, no time limitation, up to 200 participants. Uh, More than 200 participants, like you can actually leverage integrating Google Meet with Facebook Live, or probably with um, YouTube Live. If you want, you can search RootCon resources. You might at YouTube. You can actually see there where we managed to broadcast around to around 500 users using Google Live and on Google Meet. I mean YouTube Live on Google Meet. So you can search it in Google. In YouTube. Securing our free LMS house in our server, sir. What is the best option? Using MikroTik router or using firewall software? Thank you. Okay. Well, it depends on how your uh, server is implemented. But basically, you need to have some sort of a firewall to have a perimeter between your internal network and your internet. So basically, firewall provides you access. It acts as a door, so that you need to have a key, or you're allowed to access certain application behind the firewall. So I'm not sure with MikroTik router if they have uh, built-in firewall, but let's say, for example, I'm using a different brand from MikroTik, and it has a firewall, built-in firewall. So you can use that if it has a firewall capability, or you can use that firewall capability if you're somewhat a little bit paranoid. You can also use the OS firewall capability. So that would give you around a different perspective of protection. From Ma'am Isabel, sir, what is the best antivirus to be used in our laptop, which is not easy to expire? Hmm. Well, ideally, you need to have an antivirus that updates regularly. Study shows that actually viruses or variants of different viruses are actually being developed every day. Um, so your antivirus must have capability to update regularly. But I'm I'll be more honest on using a paid services or paid license. So it depends on you. Uh, Antivirus usually are basically the same. It's the way how you configure your policies on your antivirus, how you configure how it will scan your computers. Basically, those are the parameters for me to. There's no such thing as, probably there are, and that's best considered best of the breed. But actually, even the best of the breeds sometimes are being infected because of wrong configuration. So even those not so great antivirus, if you can actually configure it, or if it has an updated uh, definition, then I think it will work for you. uh, which telephone conferencing is safe to use for our learner? Well, I think most of the security of the teleconferencing tools now are security inclined. Google Meet is one, Zoom, MS Teams. What else? That's it. And how can we secure from lists? How can we secure our Zoom account? Well, for one, provide a good password. It should be complex password, but easily um, remember. It's basically the same principle as your Gmail account password. You need to have an uppercase, a lowercase, a number, and special character. The thing with password is that you must be creative in such a way that you combine all those requirements and then create a very a password that can be remembered easily. From Marceline, sir, may times po sa Google Meet na failed to join. What's the reason po? Haven't experienced that, but I think one of the condition, I think one of the issue there is the network connection. So if you're probably using data, that's one. At home, yung probably there's an intermittent connection when using your DSL. Ideally, there's a minimum requirement, but each, well, Google Meet and Zoom has a very small requirements for bandwidth, for internet bandwidth. Bean Flores, sir, can you host a local server like LMS even your public IP given by the ISP is dynamic? How is it possible? Well, you can do this. There are different services that can actually that are available on the internet that can update your IP and your dynamic IP addresses and provide you with fully qualified domain name. So you need to set up those services along with your fully qualified domain name to have access to your server, local server. Well, you need to have a good firewall policy for it also. From Lydia, what is the best suggestion for me? Not so techy teacher and not so knowledgeable in laptop spec, sir. So I'm assuming you're asking for a laptop specification. Usually specification is based on requirements. So let's say, for example, if you're going to host a Zoom meeting or a Google Meet meeting or a modular type education wherein webinars are considered part of it, I think you need to have a decent, or you need to check the requirements of your teleconferencing or your online meeting tools. So if the school uses Google Meet or if the school uses Zoom, you might want to consider the minimum requirements of Zoom. But those two, Zoom and Google Meet, does not have that much high-end requirements. So you'll be safe with any laptop available, decent laptop available, like for example, 4 gig of memory, or at least recommended is 8 gig of memory, and a decent processor. So another question is, how can we avoid the interruption of online discussion? Okay, there's a lot of factors affecting online discussion. One is internet connection stability. But if your question is geared towards other participant joining the discussion, well, those participants that are not part of the discussion, then there are actually some of the configuration, online configuration for your tools. Like for example, for Zoom, you can use a waiting room capability so that you can actually choose which user or which participant can actually join in the discussion. You can also require them to uh, register so that you know the email address of the participant. And then you can choose which participant can actually join. Question, sir. What specs can I use for programming? If we're talking of laptop or desktop, then I, it depends on how you want it. There are other users that actually are using their programming computers, and at the same time doing publishing, and at the same time doing graphics. But for purely programming, I think a decent specs for desktop and laptop will actually work. Uh, to add to that, um, programming, you might want to look into the the recommended specification of the tools you are using, and then base your uh, laptop or you're choosing based on that recommended specification. There's always this. It's similar to other application like teleconferencing application. They have their recommended configuration. They have their minimal configuration, but I would recommend going into recommended configuration. May one more question pa daw. Okay, so that's okay. So basically, that's it. So if you have other questions, or after this presentation, you will come, you need to ask something, you can drop comments on the link, the Facebook Live link, and then as much as possible, I will try to uh, check every questions and then provide answer, or probably give suggestions, recommendations, and then you can actually connect, or if you want, we can also do online discussion if you have more questions. That's it. And thank you for joining this learning activity from uh, Vival's group, Learn as One. Thank you all.